What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, my name is AkeemHaynes. I'm a two-time Olympian, Olympic bronze medalist, author, motivational speaker, and sports commentator. On my channel, we talk boxing, MMA, track and field, and of course, motivation and encouraging content. If this is something that you enjoy, then I hope that you subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get into the video. Joyce versus Christian Hammer. What do we think about this fight, right? This one is happening on Saturday over in the UK at the Wembley Arena. I'm sure it's going to be a packed out crowd. You know, the British fans over there seem to always come out and show out for their boxers and athletes, right? So it's going to be a lot of excitement over in that building this weekend. But let's touch on Christian Hammer, right? The Romanian fighter. I will say this about Christian, right? He isn't afraid to get in the ring with the best. I mean, he's been in the ring with a rising star in Frank Sanchez. He's been in the ring with Luis King Kong Ortiz, Alexander Povetkin, and against Tyson Fury. And he came up short in all those fights. But there are a lot of people who avoid big fighters, and Christian Hammer is not one of those people. He's not afraid to get inside the ring when his number is called. Now, Hammer is a good, durable fighter. Despite his losses, he's not going to go away easily. He's a veteran fighter, and he knows a few tricks and tactics on how to prolong a fight and use his skills to his advantage. Hammer isn't the most talented fighter. Even in his prime, he didn't have that extra oomph, that extra thing that says, man, this guy is explosive, he's dynamic, he is special. No, he didn't get those gifts. But what he did get is size, and what he did get is someone with a lot of heart, right? And that is something that makes a good fighter. So you know he's going to come in to fight. He's not going to back down. He's got a good overhand right, not much of a jab guy, right? He's a brawler, and he does the best work from close range, right in the pocket where he can tee off on you, right? When he is on the attack, you can't take him lightly because he does have pop in both hands, and he's knocked some cats out with some clean shots. So you can't take him lightly. I mean, he's a heavyweight. You can't take any heavyweight lightly. But I can see him pinning Joyce at some point in the fight, maybe getting him against the ropes, maybe getting him in the corner and letting his hands go and seeing what can possibly be done there, right? The downfall in Hammer is at this stage in his career, he just moves a bit slower and he's not as quick. His hand speed isn't there like how it used to be. He has very limited head movement. And while he does cover up his face well, he leaves the rest of his body open for shots, right? His footwork isn't the best. He's just a step behind of where he was. And that's something that you have to take in mind when you're fighting a caliber fighter like Joyce. Let's talk about Joyce. This is his first fight this year. So I think we have to take that into the mix, right? He's not getting any younger. He's getting older, right? And sometimes age and ring rust, they don't really correlate and mesh very well. So that's just something to keep in mind. But one thing about Joyce, right, is even if you've never heard of him before and you just looked at his record, you see the 13 wins, right? But you also see 12 by the way of knockout, right? He's got power. He's a big heavyweight, 6'6" with a big wingspan, a strong fighter. He moves well on his feet, but he's an interesting fighter to me because you watch his fights and you see he's not the quickest guy out there. He's not the most explosive guy out there. And I would argue that, you know, you can see his shots coming. But just because you can see his shots coming doesn't mean that you can stop it. I think he's a good boxer from the outside. He throws a good amount of jab and uses that to set up his power shot, right? Joyce likes to use his size and impose his will on you and smother you with shots, but he is very nimble on his feet for his size. He kind of reminds me of a modern day George Foreman, just not as big of a puncher. Now, I know you're saying, Akeem, he's got 12 knockouts in 13 fights. Yeah, but I would still take the power of George Foreman over Joyce. But I can see similar comparisons in that regard. Now, in his last fight against Carlos Takam, right, the big, strong, muscular Carlos Takam, he used every round and chopped Takam down. He kept coming forward and kept applying the pressure. In the sixth round, all the work that he was doing in the beginning rounds, he started to see that Takam was getting slower. He was getting slower. He was letting his guard down a lot more until finally, I mean, I think Joyce fired 30 unanswered shots, right, before the ref stopped the fight. But I was surprised that the ref didn't stop the fight prior to that. But also in that fight, he did take some big shots in that fight. and he took a bunch of shots against the heavy-handed Daniel Dubois when they fight. He's a decent defensive fighter, but the shots that he took, like, you know, he has a chin because both Takam and Dubois landed some clean flush shots on him, and he stood the test. Now, while Joe Joyce is a very precise and accurate puncher, there are moments where he does get a little reckless throughout the fight by throwing wild shots and not snapping his hand back quick enough to cover himself up, leaving himself open to getting countered. Perhaps Hammer can capitalize off those moments where Joe is a little bit reckless, and maybe there's some opportunities there when he can land some clean shots of his own. But in this one, I'm going towards Joe Joyce, right? Hammer, to me, in his recent fights that I've saw, it just doesn't seem like he has much left at this stage in his career. He seems to be slowing down quite significantly. I think Joyce is just going to kind of do to Hammer what he did to Takam, right? I think he's going to bide his time. He's going to be patient. He's going to swarm him. He's going to use the jab to set up his shots. He's going to go to the body. He's going to go to the head, but he's going to bide his time, and he isn't going to force a knockout that is not there. Right? Joe Joyce has a good mindset to me of where he can stay patient and know when to flip the switch and be aggressive and seize the vulnerability of his weakened opponent. So for my betting people out there, I could see Joe Joyce ending this fight by knockout somewhere in the way of the 5th or the 8th round. I could see him closing the show. But what are your thoughts on this fight? Who do you have winning? How do you have it going? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you've been watching the video this long, then do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, and we'll definitely see you next time.